this morning, Heather Dinich, and look, this is a woman who gets a lot of notoriety when talking about the college football playoffs. She works for ESPN. She's a lead reporter in terms of talking college football playoffs. I get it. There's a lot of people in that space, but think about it. Like, I feel on YouTube and overall, Josh Pate is like the guy. But a lot of people talk about what Heather Dinich says, and she reports right from the college football playoff rankings. So I'm going to read out a quote this morning that she had on ESPN. There's no bigger question tonight than what they do with Miami. She's talking about the playoff committee. I project them to stay in because I think when you look at the 2 losses against Georgia Tech and Syracuse ahead of Alabama's 3 losses, but of those 2 losses were teams with 6 losses each. That's Oklahoma and Vanderbilt. Now, that's one take from someone. I don't think that Heather Dinich even has, I don't think she's in the room voting on the teams. I think she's just a college football analyst. But look, people are going to value what she says, and I think people are right now pointing out the fact that Alabama, the losses that they have, the Oklahoma loss wasn't good, and the way that they played specifically, right? I think Vanderbilt, that was a team that just absolutely, punched above their belt, and they did that all season long. I mean, Vanderbilt was a team that was tough to beat, and we'll talk more about that, in the strength of the SEC, right? So there's one take from Heather Dinich, and that was on ESPN. I found this particular quote interesting because out of the teams I'm looking at, and I'll just cut right to the chase for you guys. I feel it's pretty easy. It's between Alabama and whatever happens in the ACC championship game. I feel that if SMU wins that game, Alabama's in, 100%. I feel that if Clemson wins that game, it's between SMU and Alabama. All right? So, look, you have SMU at that point would have an 11-2 record. You would have Alabama with a 9-3. You would have Miami with a 10-2. She has Miami in. I find it hard to put a team in the playoffs that hasn't played a top 25 team. Plus, Miami all season long, like, we're college football fans. We knew that they were a pretender, and it eventually caught up with them. The thing with Alabama is kind of like feast or famine, and for the most part, it was feast, right? Plus, they played, and I know we'll go over Greg Byrne's comments as well, but I have it as Alabama's 3-1 against top 25 teams. 3-1 against top 25 teams. Brett McMurphy, who works for the Action Network, yesterday he asked this question. If SMU, this is the question we're all talking about, if SMU wins the ACC, who should get the final at-large spot? I found this interesting too. Look, there was 21,000 votes. I don't know if they were all from South Carolina or where these votes were from or what was the only criteria to vote in this was to be a part of X, right? Twitter. And to my surprise, South Carolina. And what is mind-boggling to me is the fact that people are still pulling for South Carolina to be in over Alabama. I am not denying that South Carolina is a good football team. They are. But I already saw those 2 teams play this year. That was like the playoff play-in game. Ricky Smith brings up an amazing point. Can you imagine how much cheering there will be in the streets if Alabama is left out? And as I said yesterday, look, say what you want. Alabama might be vulnerable. You don't know which team you're going to get. If Alabama is left out of that playoff, Notre Dame is like, oh my goodness, thank you. We don't have to play. We don't have to play Alabama anymore and get destroyed at South Bend. Boise State's like, okay, thank goodness. We don't have to get embarrassed in the New Year's Six. And Georgia, even though they could be pumping their chest right now, I say it all the time. For whatever reason, those 2 teams meet again. Georgia will be favored. Everything will be lined up for Georgia, and Alabama will beat Georgia. It continues to happen. All right, so people were saying this was a big statement. I mean, Greg Byrne, look, I think we all know, if you've heard this man speak, this guy is very intelligent. He's articulate. He's intelligent. Greg Byrne, he's the man. All right. So this is what he put together. He posted this on X recently. I think this was yesterday. Here's a good look at the number rankings for Alabama football. Recognize there's a lot of chatter out there about 2 versus 3 lost teams. However, that's just one factor. When you look at the college football playoff principles for its selection committee, the first bullet point on the list is considerations is strength of schedule. Not all schedules and conferences are created equal. Like, yo, that's the truth. And that's what I've been arguing too. Greg Byrne is basically telling you the gauntlet of the SEC is far different than the Big 12, far different than the Group of 5. I would even say it's more challenging than the Big Conference. I think those are like the 2 top conferences, but come on. Indiana played in that conference all season long and only played 1 top 25 team. We've seen Penn State play before. Is anybody really impressed with Penn State? No. Nobody's impressed with Penn State. Penn State will be exposed. Indiana will be exposed. Those teams will be exposed. Notre Dame will be exposed. Just wait. Just wait. Come back. Save the receipts. Just come back and see it. There is 0 chance that Notre Dame plays for a championship, and the same thing with Penn State, and the same thing with Indiana. Greg Byrne also tweeted this infographic with his statement, which reads out, Alabama is number 2 in opponent winning percentage. Man, that's an impressive stat. That's the schedule of strength, right? That's how good your opponents were on the schedule. Number 4 in ESPN FPI. Number 4 in ESPN efficiency ratings. That's offense, defense, special teams. That's a quality team, right? Number 10 in ESPN strength record. Number 17 in ESPN strength of schedule. 3 wins. See, he has it with me. I was wondering where Coach Kalen DeBoer had 4, but I guess it notates on the bottom. 3 wins against teams currently ranked in the top 25. And then at the bottom it says, I know that the text is small, but it says 4 wins against teams ranked or receiving votes in the AP top 25 poll at the time of the game. So that's his case. We heard from Lane Kiffin yesterday fighting about Ole Miss. I haven't even seen people talking about Ole Miss. I know he has a case for Ole Miss, but I haven't seen that be like, I haven't seen anybody talking about it.